Roosevelt, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And today we have a really interesting gentleman. His name is Jeff Schmitt, and Jeff is going to help us. Listen to this, guys. If you know anybody who needs to quit smoking, you need to definitely have them tune into the show or share the show. Here's the deal. He says, all of my relations, that's the name of his company and what he does, what it's called All of My Relations, is a one-of-a-kind web platform aimed at ending tobacco dependence. Now, he's the founder, and Jeff Schmitt, and he's one of the world's most highly respected experts in the neuropharmacology and ethnobotany of tobacco. And he's developed a new model for treating tobacco dependence based on native principles of healing. This is right up my alley, you guys. Self-awareness and accountability. Now, this program lasts for 1 year, so it's not like an overnight fix. Let me give you a little information about Jeff before I bring him on today. He is a PhD. He's a scientist, musician, folk healer. He's recognized as a world leader, a leading authority on the subject of tobacco. He's a 35-year veteran scientist, entrepreneur with over 100 publications and patents to his name. As a social entrepreneur, he's helped start 5 companies, one of which went public in 2002. Jeff has also practiced and taught Chinese martial arts for most of his life, and he's a dedicated practitioner and student of folk healing tradition of Peru and North America. And he's also a teacher of the healing arts and cosmologies of South Africa and the Andes. Now, he has given a lot of TED Talks. I've watched one of his talks. It's very interesting where he talks about his experiences. He's also studied the neuroprotective properties of compounds found in tobacco. And he helped start a company to fight diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, based on this research, which this is really good stuff. So over the years, his relationship has shifted to working with tobacco as a teacher and a catalyst for sacred healing. Welcome to High Road to Humanity, Jeff.
Great to be with you and your listeners, Nancy. I'm looking forward to a lively conversation.
Yes, thanks for coming. You know, I watched a little bit about how you went and spent some time with some Native people, and was this the beginning? Tell us your story. Was this the beginning of you realizing that what you had to do in order to go within and how did your spiritual journey start, I guess, is my question.
Well, thanks for the kind introduction and that question. It actually started quite a long time before. My spiritual journey was essentially rooted in Asian philosophy and martial arts for many, many years. And if someone would have told me back then that I'd be doing what I'm doing now and have the relationship that I do with tobacco and other plants, I would have probably told them they're crazy. These things often come to us in very surprising and unpredictable ways. And so for the last 3 decades, I've been studying as a scientist tobacco, and for about a decade and a half, working as a more traditional healer using tobacco and other plants in ways that people have been for thousands of years. And these two different worlds that I live in have been coming closer and closer together. And this platform, this 6-month treatment program that I've created is sort of a merging of those two worlds, my understanding of neuroscience and the sacred aspect of what it means to be in right relations. That's hence the namesake.
Right. Well, which came first? Were you into the healing and the more spiritual stuff first, and then you got into, the tobacco part of it, or kind of at the same time, simultaneously?
Well, I had been studying Asian and Eastern spirituality for a very, very long time, and tobacco came along for me as a scientist almost a decade and a half before I had any knowledge of the ethnobotany and the traditional uses of the plant.
Okay. Yeah, and what you're talking about here is a lot of stuff that I talk about, and we need to go through it. But when somebody is addicted to nicotine, and I wanted to ask you this too, does your program work for alcoholics? Does it work for people who are addicted to drugs, or is it just basically for people who are addicted to nicotine?
Well, our expectation is that we'll branch out in the future. But right now we're starting with the theme of tobacco and nicotine, partially because it's an area of my expertise.
Right.
The thing about this plant, and nicotine, is that there are no other substances known, no other plant that's known that does the same thing with human beings that this plant does. And actually, it led to a revolution in our understanding of how the brain works. Nicotine has been used as a scientific tool to probe the deepest levels of our brain's circuitry. And there's no wonder that this substance is so quote unquote addictive.
Right. Well, yeah, because you say, and I was looking, you had said, and I read some of your stuff on your website. So the people who, what was tobacco really intended for in the beginning? If you could tell the audience that would make a lot more sense.
Well, if you look at cultures across the world that live in places where tobacco grows naturally, this plant is considered, almost without exception, the most powerful plant in terms of healing, in terms of its intelligence, in terms of its vast capabilities.
Okay.
So traditionally, it's understood as as not only a powerful healing intelligence in and of itself, but also as an emissary to all the other plant consciousness in the world. And there are interesting stories of origin that you find from Bali to South America that talk about the world being newly minted, and the creator of the world making all the plant people, and being in council with all the plant people and saying, okay, what do you want to do, Mr. or Mrs. Plant, on this earth? And the stories are very common, that young tobacco was at the very end of the line, and as he heard every story about what the other plants wanted to do, by the time he got up to the world creator, and the world creator said, so what are you going to do? And all he could say was, I want to do everything that all the other plants do. And the world creator said, wow, well, that's interesting. We don't have a plant like that. So be it. And what's so interesting is that modern neuroscience has discovered that that is actually the case with how tobacco and nicotine interact with the brain. You, as the person smoking or administering the nicotine,
Right.
can actually decide consciously or unconsciously what the outcome is. It can be a euphoriant, a stimulant, a relaxant, a memory enhancer. There are like a dozen different psychological, pharmacological outcomes, and there's nothing we've ever discovered that's like that.
So there's benefits of smoking tobacco, but what I feel is intuitively and kind of know is that we took it way too far. We smoke it like a ton of it, or maybe everything in moderation. I don't know.
Well, the industrialization of tobacco has been it's indisputable the damage that its misuse has done to humans, but it goes back all the way to the diaspora of European explorers around the world. Tobacco was used as a device as one of the many devices, like alcohol, for Europeans to overtake the world. And Europe exploded with tobacco use as soon as it was brought back from the New World. And so there are many dimensions to it. We know that tobacco and nicotine are good for the nervous system, and when misused, when used as an addictive material, really terrible for the rest of the body.
Right. So it's really the misuse of it that has happened. And, you talk about spiritual awakening, and I'm hoping that you'll share a little bit of that with us, because really you talk about the addiction has a lot to do with our relationships and our relationship with ourselves.
That's one of the gaps that I'm trying to address in this program, is that the cutting edge programs dealing with addiction and dependence now are recognizing that we are most vulnerable for addictive behaviors when we feel disconnected from life, from the rest of the world.
Okay.
When we don't have fulfilling relationships, when we don't have things that fulfill us and connect us and feed us in healthy ways, we resort to numbing out. We resort to substances and activities that aren't actually good for us.
Right.
Well, what I've come to realize is that there's been a missing piece, and that missing piece is that we need to first return to ourselves
Right.
and get to know ourselves in a new, compassionate, curious, and energized way.
Fulfilling. Yeah, wait. Yeah, we've got about 1 minute to commercial. Well, that's what I want to talk about today because it all stems from and you know, I've been talking to so many different people, whether we're discussing meditation, whether we're discussing yoga, whether we're any of these subjects, it all comes back to self, which is quite interesting because our society has never talked about that. It's just in the last few years that I hear people talking about if you're okay with yourself and you feel good about yourself and everything around you, you know, seems to work out. And that's you know, one of the main things that I think we need to talk about today is to, you know, fix ourselves if we can, because that's what we need to do. We've got a little bit before we go to break, but Jeff, if people want to find out about your program, how do they find out about you? What's your website?
Our website is allofmyrelations.com. And everything you need to know is there in video and in written form. And the 6-month program is extraordinarily inexpensive, and you'll be supported on a tremendous journey of learning about yourself in new ways.
All right. We're going to talk more about this, you guys. And so you get a feel for what the program is about, and we'll have Jeff give us a little overview of, you know, I know it's a lot of meditations and different things, but we'll be right back.
Hang on. We have more.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, because this really all stems, and we're going to talk about this from just going within. I wonder if you'll tell us the little story about that you told. I don't know if you can make it shorter or not, that you told on TED Talks about when you went and kind of found yourself.
So,
or do you think, because I mean, or if you can tell something like similar, just kind of give them an idea, because you had to realize this yourself before you could teach it to other people, you know?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe if you could talk a little bit about how you discovered this, then that would kind of get people to understand what, you know, what we're talking about here.
Nothing like an autobiographical piece to
there.
But probably the TED Talk is pretty exotic. So, you know, if you just want to ask me just something it's generally autobiographical, I can give you something.
Well, yeah, I just want to I want you to tell about how you found your own peace.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
It's okay. Yeah, and then that way, you know, because I mean, and then that way people go, oh, your own self-knowing, I guess I should say. That's what I'll say. And then that way. Now, are you seeing my cues up here? You are.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. Where are you today?
I am in central North Carolina. I usually hail from Asheville, North Carolina, up in the mountains.
Okay.
And I'm down visiting some long-time friends. I'm doing kind of a quick little loop, seeing a bunch of people that I'm long overdue seeing. And
oh, nice.
Go back to the mountains in a few hours.
Okay.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Michigan right now, but I'm going to be heading back to New Mexico. That's where I'm from after the holiday. So it's cold. I'm from here originally, and I remember now why I moved. It's cold.
Love New Mexico. That's a great place.
Yeah, I do too. So I'll head back there after the holiday. And yeah, it's a whole different ball game there. It's more spiritual. I feel more comfortable there. Yeah.
We want to thank you so much for listening to High Road to Humanity. This is where Nancy and her guests tell stories that will guide you and enlighten your mind and soul. Now welcome back to the High Road.
Welcome back to High Road to Humanity, and this is Nancy, your host, and I'm here today with Jeff Schmitt, and Jeff's talking to us about tobacco and the dependency of tobacco and how it used to be, or originally was meant for more of a healing. And I said to Jeff on the break, and I wanted him to talk to the audience, and Jeff, talk to us about how you came to this point of self-knowing, happiness, being healthy. I think you went to the Sequoia community and you learned this stuff from some people that know the real deal, huh?
Well, you know, it's my walk has started as a scientist. I was, for the lack of a better term, a prodigy. I went to college early and really had a spectacular scientific career, and basically had it made, and basically from the outside a life that many people, especially starting off in their academic careers, would die for. And yet at the same time, I was bludgeoning my way through life. I was depressed and in many ways really unhealthy. The work that I'd done in meditation and martial arts hadn't really penetrated to the areas of core wounding that were keeping me from being happy. And then I got introduced to a series of people who became my teachers from South America, and really embarked on a very difficult few years of healing and exploration. And what I discovered was that in the process of that was a whole different cosmology, a whole different way of looking at the relationship between humans, human consciousness, and the rest of the earth. And really come to conclude that industrialized culture is in the scheme of human beings on the earth is quite a freak show. I mean, we are living in ways that our ancestors didn't, and were conditioned and trained through millennia in a very different way. We find ourselves in many ways as strangers in a strange land, and right. And unraveling that while remaining a person in the Western world has been an incredible journey, and I feel like in so many ways I've got an absolute perfect life, and how could I not share what I've learned and pay it forward. And
right. Well, you talk about how we need to shed attachments, we need to shed our negative thought forms, and just to be happy and healthy. And everybody is looking outside of themselves for the happiness, and it's not on the outside of us, it's on the inside of us. And I think you discovered that as well.
Yeah, there are a few themes that run through all of my teaching, all of my programs, all of my relationship.com not being is no exception to this. The first thing is what you just said, understanding that deep within us, given the right conditions and the right support, we have everything inside ourselves that we need to live a healed, healthy, happy, and fulfilled life.
Right.
Also, a big theme is our relationship with the darkness, with the struggle. One of the greatest teachings that my first maestro in the way of working with sacred plants taught me was that everything on this earth is born in the darkness. Name me one thing that's not born in the darkness on this earth. So that which is dark, which is difficult, we try to avoid, is also the place where all new things are birthed.
Right.
And many scholars, especially in the last 50 years, have told us that in order for us to be balanced in our worldview and our understanding, we have to reassess our relationship with the shadow. We tend to push away things that are uncomfortable. And what teachings like mine do is help us find a place of stillness, curiosity, inquisitiveness with those things that are uncomfortable, that we tend to say are dark.
Right.
And do that, it awakens our body's innate intelligence to transform. We become the observer, observing the phenomenon of our lives, and when we do that, we have the capacity then to transform and truly heal, rather than just to deal with superficial.
Yeah. So it's almost like we're afraid, so we have to get rid of the fear, is what I hear you saying.
Fear is a big piece of it. Fearlessness is the first essential attribute of launching on the hero's journey. To put it in the language of Joseph Campbell, any true self-actualization, any true healing requires us to set out from the place of comfort, go into the strange land, the dangerous land, the foreign land, in order to bring back the gold for themselves and for their community.
So you've got to go into the dark to find the light, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And we're built for this. We're made for this.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of ancient wisdom that you've been taught over the years. Now, did you meditate before, or do you meditate now, or how do you calm yourself and how do you keep yourself balanced?
I started in my mid-teens doing Buddhist and Vipassana meditation, and that was my sort of introduction. And
Right.
the work that I do in Andean modalities of practice and healing also involve meditation, retreat from the outside world, many practices, all centered on meditation. And the All My Relations platform does use meditation and breath work as an anchor for the journey, getting you from a place of being out of balance and not right relations to right relations. Yeah.
Right. You know, it's funny you would say that, because last week I had on 2 yoga experts from the UK, and they said, yoga is not about the movement. It's about the breathing, and it's about the connecting. And it was nice to hear that. They're like, yes, the movements are important, but not as important as it is to feel your breath and feel that you're present, and that's what we talked about, not thinking about the future and not thinking about the past, but thinking about what is right now. And that's really difficult to do. And that's part of this too, with your program, I would imagine.
Well, breath occupies a very interesting space in the human experience because it's both automatic and to some extent controllable. It's a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, a bridge between the mind and the body. And the earliest writings that we have from Vedic and yogic traditions, like the Upanishads, there's a quote from the Upanishads that says, "Consciousness is like a kite, breath the string that guides it." I mean, that's a many thousands of year old quote.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, and I always think it's great because we've all got these watches now, these Apple Watches, and it tells us to breathe, and it just cracks me up because they're right. When it tells me to breathe, I'm like, oh. And it makes you stop and think. I know it sounds crazy, but it makes you stop and think, oh, I need to relax a little bit. And when you do stop and take a few breaths, then you kind of calm down and you refocus. And that's something we all need to do, I think.
And this is an important piece, especially for those who are in an unhealthy relationship with tobacco vis-a-vis smoking, because taking smoke into your lungs, any native person who works with tobacco in an ancient way will tell you, never do that. That'll make you sick. So breath is actually extra important in this program because that is the part of the body, the lungs are the part of the body that receive the most direct bludgeon from the misuse of the tobacco.
So so originally, was tobacco supposed to be smoked?
Oh, tobacco is smoked in traditional circles, but it's not in general taken into the lungs.
So they hold it? I don't understand that. Yeah, help me out with that one.
Put it in the smoke in your mouth and use it in prayer. But tobacco is made powdered snuffs like rape or hape, liquids that are brought up through the nostrils like singa, singado. Certain tribes even administered tobacco tea as an enema. I mean, just about any way to get it in, it's been made. Cuts. Hunters will make cuts in their skin in certain tribes and
put it there. Yeah, but not in the lungs.
Not in the lungs.
I just, it just amazes me. I'm like, how did we get to that point? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know, because that's what everybody does. And now that they're not smoking cigarettes, because I used to smoke cigarettes, I'll be honest, and I'm never going to be one of these smokers that, put anybody else down for smoking, because we got about 2 minutes to break. But I will say it's very difficult to quit smoking because you're addicted to that nicotine in the tobacco. And now they've got the pens that are, vapor. And that's just as bad or the same? Yes, because it's going into the lungs.
Yeah, that's a new frontier. We have, I think, no idea what the health and psychological implications are of vaping.
Yeah, because you got kids doing it in high school. And what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the scientist here, one of those vape pens is like smoking a pack of cigarettes, right?
I have no idea.
That's what I've heard. So I think a lot of time, and they're fruit flavored or whatever. So I think the younger generations, when we were in high school and people, went out and had a cigarette or whatever to be cool, a lot of people that dropped off when they got into college. But now it's like the cool thing to do is to vape, and it's like so backwards, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
It is. And, I think tobacco and its misuse, nicotine and its misuse, serve as a metaphor for what's happening on a larger scale in society. We're not mindful about the decisions we make. We also tend to jump to a very quick conclusions.
Right. Hey, we've got about 30 seconds to break. So I'm going to wrap it up here. But when we come back, I want to talk to you about music, because you talk about healing with sound, and I want to talk a little bit about that, just because I think it's kind of cool stuff. I believe in the healing with sound, you guys, in music. So we're here today, if you just joined us, with Jeff Schmitt, and we are talking about tobacco, how to quit smoking, and we'll be right back. This is Nancy Yearout.
We will be right back on High Road to...
I thought my cat was doing something underneath my desk.
I saw a dog running around behind you.
There's my cat, and I thought she's over here. I'm like, is she doing that? No, I want.
Oh, I see outside.
Yeah, it's raining. It was raining today. I wanted to talk about a couple more things. One is relationships, and I want to talk about music a little bit and the healing properties, because I want to hear what you have to say about it. And then I want to talk about your program and the relationships, if you want to, give us a whole deal on that. What do you think? Yeah. Because a lot of your stuff is meditations, right? And visualizations. Do you do that too? Okay, cool. Yeah, because I really believe in the visualizations and the meditations that you can take people through, and it helps them if they do it on a regular basis to change the way they think and change the energy, is what I believe. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Okay, cool. All right. I'm glad you came on.
Well,
it's hard. Yeah, my daughter smokes, and I told her I was having you on, and I think it's almost like. And I smoked when I was younger, but it's almost like you're so busy, and that's your 5 minutes of release. You know what I mean? That's what I can remember about smoking. Yeah. Did you ever smoke?
No, I never smoked. Only ceremonially. Yeah. I mean, that needs to be addressed. It is a ritual. It is part of our ritual fabric. And so how one of the questions that I bring up is how do you create that in a way that's healthy? I don't tell people never smoke again. That's not
right. Right. Well, let's talk about that when we come back, because and then I want you to give your view on that, because I want people to hear that. That sounds like a good deal. Okay. How are we doing, Ben?
We have about 30 seconds to go.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay. I need to say something about bestradiotravel.com, huh? Okay. Website at www.nancyyearout.com. That's NancyYearout.com. Barnes & Noble and Amazon. And thanks for picking up my book. And may the energy of the universe bless you.
We want to thank you so much for listening to High Road to Humanity. This is where Nancy and her guests tell stories that will guide you and enlighten your mind and soul. Now welcome back to the High Road.
Hey, welcome back to High Road to Humanity. And just before I forget, we have a wonderful sponsor, bestradiotravel.com. And if you guys are traveling over the holidays, if you go in on the website and put in bestradiotravel.com/Nancy, you will get some really great hotel rates. So make sure you do that. Also, I want to mention my website, which is nancyyearout.com. If you're interested in a psychic reading or if you want to sign up for any of my intuitive coaching, go to nancyyearout.com. We are here today with Jeff Schmitt. He's a PhD, and we're talking about how to quit smoking. And I asked Jeff on the break, I said, did you ever smoke? And he said, no, just in ceremony. And I've smoked. And what I want to talk about is, and I remember, and I was telling Jeff, and I know a lot of people can relate to this, you know, you have a stressful day or something really stresses you out. And when you smoke, the first thing you do is go outside and have a cigarette. Why do we do that? That's like our release, right? That was my release anyway. Talk to us about that, Jeff.
Well, it sort of loops back to what I mentioned earlier, that one of the reasons that tobacco is so compelling, and we come into play a relationship of sometimes unhealthy dependence with this plant, is that it is so powerful. It's like a Swiss Army knife, and it gives you, whether you consciously direct it or unconsciously direct it, it essentially gives you the mental state that you're seeking. And refuge and relaxation and creating a space is part of this plant's power. So one of the things I try to impress upon people is that quiet place that you're tapping into is one of the ways that it's actually been used as an aid in prayer, an aid in meditation. And the potential exists that you can actually end your quote unquote addiction and at the same time still have a relationship with the plant that is actually not harmful to your body. You know, I don't say to my clients, the countless clients that I've worked with, never smoke again. Now, what happens is that some people detach and never work with it again, and some people that I know have actually, through their relationship with tobacco, have opened up a whole new spiritual path for themselves in the traditions of the Americas. So it's not simple. It's not black and white. And that's why I call my program all of my relations, because it's about healthy relationship. It's not about this binary black and white, good versus evil, do versus don't. It's about showing up for yourself in life in a really good way.
Yeah. You were saying like we tend to go out by ourselves and isolate ourselves. And that's why you called it relationships, because instead of having a relationship or talking to somebody or going within and doing meditation, we're picking up a cigarette. Is that right?
Well, that's true. I mean, in terms of, if you look at addictive behaviors across the board, oftentimes we use these things to avoid the painful dimensions of life. And let's face it, being a human being is tough. I mean, we're still, since the last ice age, when we inherited this huge extra circuitry in our supercomputer in our noggin, it has been a really, really difficult thing to grapple with, being conscious of our conscious existence. And many indigenous tribes have, and many wisdom traditions have, a recognition of this problematic nature of human beings, and have practices that keep us in alignment and keep that aspect of ourselves tempered. And when we're out of whack with that, one of the first things that happens is that we fall into addictive behavior.
Right, to try to get ourselves back to where we're supposed to be, but we don't know because we don't teach this stuff. It's just coming around, in the last few years where people are starting to listen, that meditation is not ooey gooey and weird. It actually works and balances us and gives us something to quiet the mind, the breathing, like we were talking about. Yeah. You talk about, and so as far as the relationship goes, what do you tell people to do? During your program, you have meditations that you have them do. You have visualizations. Can you give us a little information about that? And I'm confused on, is it a 6-month program or a 1-year program?
It's a 6-month program.
It's a 6-month program. Okay, so if I got into your program, then you would give me a series of meditations and visualizations to kind of change the way I think and to change my energy, yes?
Yes. So every month of the 6-month program, you're given a set of recordings and a set of exercises to do that are focused on journaling. Very simple, 5 minutes a day sort of thing. The recordings take 2 forms. The first type of recording are actually guided exercises and visualizations that deal explicitly with themes having to do with dependency and addiction. And to accompany that, there's another type of recording that are basically musical compositions with very, very cutting edge sonic brain state technology that help your brain and its brain state work through all of the energies and themes that arise as you're going through the program. So the very first part is actually bringing you back to a newfound and hopefully deeper and more authentic relationship to your embodied experience, bringing yourself back to your body. You know, the thing is, your body will always tell you the truth.
Right, I know that.
Brilliant.
Yes.
And most people spend a lot of time suppressing the useful information that their body's trying to tell them. And what we're doing is flipping that on its end and saying, no, come back to your body, because that is the first relationship. You can't really have an authentic and healthy relationship with the rest of the world if you're not connected to yourself and your own experience. If you're not gentle with yourself, ultimately it's impossible to be gentle with anybody else.
Right.
So that's where we start. And what surprises a lot of people is that the first 2 months of the program, you don't even hear the word tobacco mentioned. You don't even hear the word addiction throughout the whole program, because that's not the point.
Right. Well, and I think when I'm listening to you talk about this, I've had a lot of different people on my show who heal with sound. And I've had Patty Conklin on. I don't know if you know Patty. She heals with sound and with color. I've done some research on Mitchell Gaynor. He was healing cancer patients with sound. And it sounds like you've done some research, because what I'm picking up from you is these sounds that you have on your videos or your CDs or whatever that people listen to, that sound that they hear is balancing their energy field, is what it's doing. And so I wonder if you would address that, because I'm really big on the sound thing. I just really believe in music.
Well, this started off with the desire to actually give people who are taking on the hard work of transformation something beautiful to accompany them on their journey. Mm-hmm. And I work with a world-renowned sound artist, percussionist, and sound healer named River Gregarian. And we've created, using research that's been done on tonality, on pulse, on binaural beats, diachronic beats, to help the person achieve certain brain states that support whatever theme they're working on in the exercises. And so, yes, since time immemorial, it's been understood that sound has a incredible transformative potential, the ability to help us transform and evolve our consciousness, and to achieve certain brain states that can move us past being stuck. And so that's a big piece of this too. One of the things that happens when we are in uncomfortable and unsettled places is that our left brain and our right brain stop talking to one another. And this is particularly potent in PTSD. Pioneers of positive psychology and somatic therapy, people like Bessel van der Kolk, have shown us that when you go into states of discomfort and trauma, the the connection between your left and right brain shuts down, and it becomes impossible for you to do anything but be stuck. And so using sound in the right way can actually help get the left and right brain talking. And when they're talking in balance, and that's when you can actually really make some transformative progress.
Well, and that's why I think, your program will probably work for other people, for other things, maybe down the road, because even if you don't have an addiction to nicotine, if you're addicted to whatever, something else, if you listen to your program, then it does help you as far as it will balance you back to where you need to be. Yes.
Well, that's our hope. Yeah. That's our aspiration. Yeah.
I like that. I think that's wonderful because it took me a long time. I really am big on energy and our energy fields and balancing our energy fields. And we need to think of ourselves as energetic beings, and we don't. And, I know that different tones can balance us. And so I think it's amazing the research that is being done with this. Now, the gentleman that helped you, does he also do this for other health practitioners?
He does quite a bit of work solo, doing sound journeys and the like, but he actually works with a world music ensemble that travels the world called Free Planet Radio. His website's called Share the Drum.
Nice.
River Gregarian is a tremendous gift to the world in terms of bridging ancient musical modalities and ethnic music to the West.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. We've got about 1 minute to break, or about 30 seconds to break. But I just think it's really neat that you're doing this work and that you're bringing this to the people, because we really need this. We really need to balance ourselves. We're in a state of chaos, is what I see.
Well, thank you. We try to give back what we've been gifted, and that's my hope, is that others will benefit in the ways that I have.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And you guys, we're here today and we're talking with Jeff Schmitt, and we'll be right back. This is Nancy. You're out.
We'll be right back.
We got to save the world here, Jeff.
That's right. It's a potent time. I mean, I was very fortunate to have traveled this summer with the state-appointed shaman of Japan, and she said exactly what the Kogi told one of my friends and teachers just a couple months prior, and the same thing that was said by the Hopi, and that is that we have 5.5 years. In the next 5.5 years, if we don't achieve a threshold of conscious evolution, people who are working at a level of non-combativeness and a non-duality, that we're going to face some pretty tough times. But it is very possible that we will, achieve that boost in consciousness. We just have to do everything we can to support that.
Yeah, I'd like for you to say that when we get back on the air, because I really believe that too. I think that we do have a choice. I think we're going to make it.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, cool. Do you hear that, Ben?
I did.
Oh, good. Ben takes all this stuff home with him. When I tell him all this stuff. Yeah, let's talk about that. And let's talk about, what do you want to talk about, Jeff, on our last segment? I want to talk about what you just said about the shaman and the Hopis, but what else is really important? Do you want to talk about your program more?
We can do that a bit. And I think also, some of the research that I've done on of what nicotine actually does in the brain is pretty interesting.
All right, well, let's do that. Let's talk about that.
Great.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, great.
Is street legal, but either way, I think the police would have to put up quite a chase before they could coach him.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
We want to thank you so much for listening to High Road to Humanity. This is where Nancy and her guests tell stories that will guide you and enlighten your mind and soul. Now welcome back to the High Road.
Hey, welcome back to High Road to Humanity. And this is Nancy, your host. Listen, I do this show, so I'm trying to give back, and I know some stuff, and I bring some really awesome people on my show who know a lot. And we were talking during the break. We're here today with Jeff, and he is telling us about nicotine. And I said to him on the break, and he said that he has traveled with some people. And I wonder if you share that story that you just said, that we only have a certain amount of time to raise our consciousness. Jeff, can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting time of opportunity. I think I always think about the quote from Winston Churchill that conditions have come to be so dismal we have no other choice than to be optimistic. We will end up in the world that we are dreaming and intending. And if everybody thinks that we're gonna sink and things aren't going to work out, then that's probably how it's going to go. And there are a number of prophetic cultures and indigenous leaders around the planet, from Japan to the Kogi to the Hopi, that are saying that we actually have an opportunity, a window here of real potency, but it's a finite window.
You hear that, you guys? We got a little bit of time if we get our act together.
That's right. So the key is, how do we ignite our inner wisdom and share that inner wisdom with as many people as possible? And it has everything to do with the way that I designed this program. This program goes so much against the grain of traditional addiction treatment, and principally because I make it really clear that you're not helpless, that each person has within them everything, all the ingredients to become a Buddha, to become a walking Christ. We have that within us, if only given the right container to wake up to ourselves in. So I find this a very interesting and hopeful time, and I think in so many ways the narrative of the misunderstanding, the demonization of tobacco is emblematic of so many other things that are happening on the planet right now.
Right. Well, and I like how you said, and I'm going to go back to what you said about what we think and what we feel, because we are little creators, and what we think about all day long is what we create. And that is how we create our world that we're in. And people are finally waking up to that realization that what we think and what we feel is who we become and what happens around us. So the more of us that stand up and say, hey, this isn't the way to go. Material things is not who we are. We're a spiritual people. And if we can get back to our spirituality, and really go within and look for what is important within ourselves, then that changes the energy and everything on the outside of us. And it changes, and it's like a ripple effect, right?
That's right. And one of the consequences of having this very unusual and massive brain is that language has a very different role in our evolution and in our consciousness. Mm-hmm. The old teaching that language structures reality, and for anybody who doubts that, I would refer you to people like Daniel Kahneman, who wrote this fantastic summary of his life's work that led to a Nobel Prize called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. He did this phenomenal experiment with college students. Two groups of college students were tasked with spending a minute making sentences out of a bunch of words that he gave them. One group got very innocuous words like house, tree, car. The other group got words that were connected with growing old and the downside of growing old. And he said, for 1 minute, make as many sentences as you can out of these words. And he said, now, after you're done, come down to the break room, walk down the hall, and I'll give you your results. Well, what the students didn't know was that the actual experiment was the hallway. And he measured the gait, the posture, the speed, everything about the body language of the students after they did this. The students who worked with the words connected with elderly, their posture, their speed, everything about how they were physically exhibiting looked like they were 40 or 50 years their senior. And this is after 1 minute of entrainment, 1 minute of entrainment to those words. And the point that he was making in this experiment is that we do this all the time in every way.
Yeah, if we can just change your thinking, change your life. I always say that. Change your thoughts, change your life, because what you think is who you become. And that's a big one. Now, you were talking to me about nicotine and what it does to the brain. I wonder if you tell the audience, give us a little synopsis of what nicotine does to the brain.
It's actually quite fascinating. So nicotine is a imitator. It imitates the most prevalent neurotransmitter in the body. That's acetylcholine. And the reason that nicotine exists in the first place is that plants started making nicotine as a natural insecticide, a strategy for them to not get eaten by bugs. It turns out that a lot of the most successful and earliest medicines in pharmacy are actually natural insecticides. It's really interesting. And so nicotine imitates acetylcholine, and acetylcholine is part and parcel to our brain's most fundamental circuitry. We have these transistors in our brain, trillions of them, called ion channels. And there's a particular type of ion channel. It's a switch. It's a gate that either lets signal through or cuts signal off. And acetylcholine is the thing that turns some of these valves on and off to let signal through. And that's how we ultimately store memory and process information, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that's really interesting here is that when you, say, get into some addictive behavior with most substances, opiates, for instance, or amphetamines, for instance, after a while you develop a tolerance. The body starts to get numb, and the circuitry that recognize those substances start to go, so what? They start, and that's why you require more and more to get the same.
Kind of the effect wears off.
Exactly. The opposite is true with nicotine. What happens is that when you get more nicotine, because it's imitating this neurotransmitter, the brain says, oh, I need more of the machinery that recognizes it because something important is going on. So the effect of nicotine in the brain is that over time it becomes like an aerobics workout for the brain. And that's how it was discovered that there's a inverse correlation between neurodegeneration, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, cognitive dementia, and smoking.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. This is a huge study done some 20 years ago. I think the scientist was named David Eisenberg. I think he basically did a huge study showing that people who smoked for about 5 years at any point in their life, their chances of getting Alzheimer's is cut in half. And if they're unlucky enough to get it, the age of onset is later. So if you don't die from cancer or cardiovascular disease because of the smoking, your chances of getting Alzheimer's are not only less, but if you get it at a later age. That opened up a whole Marshall Plan around trying to understand how nicotine works with the brain. So it's actually led to a lot of drugs and drug candidates to try to address neurodegeneration and other mental disorders. Nicotine actually has an effect on what we call schizophrenia.
Okay.
And a lot of people who have overactive brains, oversensitive brains and input to their nervous system will actually smoke to
They're self-medicating. Right. That makes sense. That makes total sense.
And we
People
all
who are,
to some extent. Yeah. We all to some extent.
Well, we've only got about 3 minutes. What a great show this has been. I want you to talk about your program. Tell people if they're interested, if they want to quit smoking, they want to get into, and this is more than just quitting smoking, you guys. This is really finding yourself and really changing your life. It really is. So take a minute here, and Jeff, and give us a little overview on the program. Give out your website, all that good stuff.
The program, thank you, Nancy, is super simple. Allofmyrelations.com. There's a one-time fee and also a monthly option if you'd like. And essentially, you have an app that provides the journeys and the sound. All that you really will need to have is some earbuds or headphones to listen to the recordings. And each month, the app guides you through exactly what you need to do, what you need to listen to. There are tons of resources on the website for herbal support, for psychological support. I talk a lot about all the issues related to nicotine and smoking and vaping. You're fully supported on your entire journey to being a healthier and happier person.
Right. Now, do you intend to write a book about this, or are you just going to keep it all, because it is audio, video, and that's kind of cool, or will you do a pamphlet that goes with it down the road?
I'm actually 3/4 of the way done with a pretty epic work describing my journey with tobacco. It's called My Life with Tobacco, From Science to the Sacred, that talks about this crazy journey that I've been on with this remarkable plant.
I love that.
Yeah, my hope is that will be out within the next year. Yeah.
Well, and that would be helpful. And I hope when you get that done that you'll come back and see me, because yeah, we've got a quite a big listenership here, and I think it would help everybody. Hey, you guys, we're talking to Jeff Schmitt. He's a PhD. He has a wonderful program for tobacco. If you want to quit smoking, please share the show, because this is the show that would really help people not just quit smoking, but just become better people, I should say, more aware, and it's good for yourself. So, Jeff, thank you. And happy Thanksgiving to you, by the way.
Oh, thank you also. I'm very thankful for being with you today, and look forward to another lively conversation at some point.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. You've taught us so much. And again, you guys, his name is Jeff Schmitt. He's a PhD. And if you want to check out his program, Jeff, give that website again.
Allofmyrelations.com.
Allofmyrelations.com. And thanks for joining us today. We'll talk to you next week on High Road for more stories filled with wisdom, love, and hope for our. Thank you, Jeff.
Well, thank you. That was great to be with you today.
Yes, and I hope you come back, because I really want to.